Michigan International Speedway. This was the peculiar sight witnessed by race car fans. Defending champ and current IndyCar points leader Mario Andretti crashing hard and then painfully accepting a stretcher ride. And now, for the first time in a driving career that spans 4 decades, he'll miss races because of injury. In this same race, former 2-time Formula One champ Emerson Fittipaldi pulls off his own surprise. Many assumed his initial IndyCar win would come on a twisting road course, but here he was, riding the crest of pit strategy. And a controversial last lap Tom Steva block of Al Unser Sr. to victory on the wreck-strewn high banks of Michigan. Al's son, Al Jr., hopes to resume his best IndyCar streak yet. He's had 3 top 2 finishes in the last 4 races, including wins in New York and at the airport in downtown Cleveland. And many new and fast foreign faces, among them Canada's Jacques Villeneuve, who challenged for the Indiantown lead before this spin. But for the younger Unser, his 3rd career win, 2 here on ESPN. In the winter, this is frigid Green Bay Packer country, but in the summer, a rural area of horses and milk-fed livestock. And this week, the car PPG IndyCar Series returns to what appears to be the friendlier confines of a road course, the country's longest, the 4 miles of Road America. ESPN, now entering its 6th season as your #1 auto racing network, presents Auto Racing 85. Road America. This is a racetrack the drivers say they like to drive, and with the absence of Mario Andretti, this could be a wide-open affair. The weather, well, it was 80 degrees, the wind gusting from 10 to 20 miles an hour, and the Weather Bureau originally said there was about a 40% chance of rain, but it has really deteriorated in the last few minutes. The IndyCar's PPG Series ready to do battle here on the 4.0-mile road course in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Larry Nuber, and this is Jack Arute. And Jack, Mario's absence has really been felt this weekend.
Oh, indeed it has, Larry. And it's the first time in 28 years that Mario Andretti has missed a race due to a problem of an injury. And the thing that's interesting is how it throws wide open the PPG point title. We've got 2 drivers. Emerson Fittipaldi, he has to finish 4th or better to appropriate the front position, the title chase. And then, of course, there's Al Unser Sr. If he finishes 6th or better, he could take the points lead going at the halfway mark. And what's interesting to note there is the fact that Al Unser Sr., in all the races he's run thus far this year, has been able to accomplish that feat, finish 6th or better.
Well, despite the absence of Mario, some of the top drivers are still at the top after qualifying runs. Another new record this weekend.
A new record and a repeat winner for the pole position. Danny Sullivan got his 2nd pole of the year, and the guy on the outside, well, Bobby Rahal. He runs fast, but he's had a myriad of problems in the early going of the other events. He's only managed to finish 1 event, and that was the oval track race back at Milwaukee.
Despite all those regular and predictable names, there is one surprise up in the first 2 rows, and Gary Lee is there now.
Thank you, Larry, and good afternoon. Well, this is the age of the specialist in IndyCar racing, with over half the races being contested on road courses. Some owners, like Rick Gallis, are employing 2 drivers, 1 for the ovals, 1 for the road courses. And this weekend, a very promising young Brazilian rookie, Roberto Moreno. You qualified 3rd. You've raced here on this track before. In fact, you won in Formula Atlantic 2 years ago. So what's the strategy? Is this a learning experience?
Yeah, it will be a learning experience because I haven't completed a full distance race yet in this type of racing. And I know it's very important to keep the car in one piece and then try to fight for the lead at the end. At this stage, you know, my crew have done a great job with the car because even not knowing the circuit very well in this type of car, we came here and here we are 3rd on the grid. So the car must be very good. You know, no driver can drive a car unless it's very good.
Well, obviously, he's very fast in qualifying. Could we have a rookie victor here at Elkhart Lake? Larry?
All right, Gary, thank you. The Provimi Veal 200 is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by good...
Welcome back to Road America for the start of the Provimeville 200. Well, all of the cars have gotten underway. They're working their way through the 14-turn road course. And for a look at the starting lineup, here's Larry Newber.
Pole setter for today's race, Danny Sullivan, the winner of this year's Indy 500, Louisville, Kentucky. Another new track record, the Miller American Special March. He's flanked by Bobby Rahal, Dublin, Ohio, the Budweiser True Sports, another March. In row number 2, Roberto Moreno from Brasilia, Brazil, the Valvoline Hawk. On the outside, Jacques Villeneuve from St. Cuthbert, Quebec, the Canadian Tire Machine. In row number 3, Roberto Guerrero from Columbia, the True Value Master Mechanic Emerson Electric Car, and Ari Loyendijk from Heartland, Wisconsin, the Provimeville Peak Lola. In row number 4, 7th position, Jeff Brabham, the Coors Light Silver Bullet, and Al Unser Jr. from New Mexico, the Domino's Pizza Hot One Lola. Row number 5, Raul Boizo from Curitiba, Brazil, the Break Free Special, and Michael Andretti from Pennsylvania, the Electrolux Craco March. In row number 6, Al Unser Sr., the Pennzoil Z7 Special, and Alan Jones from Australia, the Beatrice Lola. 13th position, Bill Whittington, the Arciero Lola, and Jose Lee Garza from Mexico City, Mexico, the Schaefer Machinist Union March. Here are the rest of today's qualifiers. 33 Hottie Holmes, 40 Emerson Fittipaldi, last week's winner. In row number 9, Enrique Mancilla, car number 71, and car number 18, Kevin Cogan. Of course, Enrique's first IndyCar race ever. Row number 10, Tom Sneva and Randy Lanier. In row number 11, Ed Pym, car 98, and Dennis Firestone, a brand new Lola, car 36. In row number 12, Steve Chassis and Bruno Giacomelli. That's actually a scratch position. More on that later. Row 13, Herm Johnson making his IndyCar return, and Dale Coyne, car number 19. These two drivers added under promoter options. Well, Danny Sullivan with another new track record up front. He has been very fast on road courses so far in 1985, Jack. He might be formidable here at Elkhart Lake.
Well, remember at the break of the 1985 season, Danny Sullivan and Mario Andretti joined in that terrific battle back in Long Beach in the Long Beach Grand Prix. And coming back, as you say, he sat on the pole in Portland, and we take a look at the way he's run on the road courses. He's going to be somebody to contend with. But if I had to mark somebody that might bear some watching, especially in the early going, it would have to be back in 6th position. The number 61 of Ari Loyendijk from Heartland, Wisconsin, as he'll be coming into frame. He started his activities here in a kart PPG race 1 year ago, and there he is, driving for the Provimi Peak team this year, going for the Vanderbilt Rookie of the Year awards, and we'll have to watch him because he could be a comer this afternoon.
The only non-qualifier here this weekend was Johnny Rutherford, just to make mention of him because he is the only guy who showed up who didn't make the race. You see Ari Loyendijk, who finished 8th here last year. Johnny crashed in practice and will not be in today's race. Al Unser Jr., car number 30. He has been on a hot streak.
Boy, that's just an understatement, especially on the road courses. Who can forget the fine ride back there at Cleveland where he ran so strong? The Meadowlands, well, there were a lot of people that said that if Rahal and Andretti had finished the race, it would have been a different story. But he really proved himself there in Cleveland. And for Doug Shearson, it's a good job for the entire team. You know, Doug takes his racing seriously. He'll be sequestered away from the team, running the pit board all afternoon right out close to the racetrack.
Al Unser Jr., as you heard in the open, he's had 3 top 2 finishes in the last 4 races, and he could always be strong. I think Al Unser Jr. is ducking into the pit area, Jack. Al Unser Jr. giving up his position on the grid as we complete parade lap 1. We go into a pace lap now. That's the 2nd lap before the start of this race. They are moving down the long front stretch. It's about 5/8 of a mile in length, and Jack, this is a very intriguing road course.
Well, it's very tough, Larry. You know, when you've got your slot car set when you were a young kid, you know how tough it was to keep the cars on the grid when you were running the Road America circuit? Well, it's in full life and full scale. It's just as difficult. 14 turns, and it is a torture test for drivers. We're working down the front straightaway into turn 1. You can see it's a 90-degree right-hander, and there's turn 1 as the cars just kind of slither their way through there. We come back up to speed, though, and get ready for turn 2 and then to turn 3.
Jack, what bothers me about turns 1 and 2, see that yellow strip right there in the middle of the screen? That's a curving, and it's very abrupt here at Elkhart Lake, and for the Indy cars, as slow as they are, they have to be careful.
You'll have to be very careful, but then when you come out of turn 3 and you work down into an area that we will refer to all afternoon as the Moraine Sweep. Now, it's basically a straightaway. The speeds can escalate to as high as 185 miles per hour, but there are 2 additional turns in there, kind of swishbacks, a 4 and a 4A, kind of a modified or a series of S's in drag. And it's a long straightaway, and there's a good shot of turns 4 and 4A, but you can come at full throttle up through there, and when you hit the peak, when you come out of that turn 4A area, you're at about a $180, $185, then downhill into turn number 5.
Now, for those of you at home, there are 3 straightaways on this race course. The Camel Bridge there will give you the second. Remember, the Main Straight, Moraine Sweep being the second straightaway, and that's how you can identify it. Now they go uphill, as Jack mentioned, around turn number 6.
Turn number 6 leads you into what we will refer to periodically as the hurry downs, and that is exactly what it is. You hurry downhill one more time into a turn 8 area. The drivers are going through that area at the present time, setting yourselves up through turn 7 and 8 for what we will be referring to as the carousel. Now, this gets a little tricky because as you come out of turn 7, you're getting set for turn 8. The leaders are in turn 8 now and getting set up for what is really a high-speed corner, the carousel.
Again, to identify this at home watching, watch for a tree right on the inside of the course. It'll be to the left-hand side of the race course. This is the carousel, that wide sweeping corner. It is the most sweeping corner on the course. Now, the tree will come into view. There it is, you see, right in the middle of the screen. If your car is geared properly, you can really pick up some speed and momentum there. Now we're going on to the third of the long straightaways on the course, and Jack, we're calling this the backstretch.
Very simply put, the backstretch. There will be a turn 11 area. You see it there. It sweeps around, but you are at full song, getting ready to go do the shuttle right down the backstretch. And coming into view in that last picture, you saw the red, white, and blue of Al Unser Jr. He ducked into the pits in a very good piece of strategy that may come into play later to top off his fuel tank. We're down the backstretch here. Speeds can go again as high as 180 miles an hour. You're back up in high gear, and you'll be able to use a little bit of the draft behind somebody else. Getting set for turn 12, which we'll refer to as the Canada corner. Turn 12 is just about taking you back home again, getting ready for another short stretch.
You saw a real quick glimpse of the Honda sign. Keep in mind, there are 14 turns on this track. Turn number 12, as Jack said, almost home where the Honda sign is.
There's turn 13. You're just about completing this torture test they call Road America, getting ready for the timing and scoring line, which is located directly in the middle of the final turn on this 4-mile facility, and that, of course, is turn 14. Then it's uphill, getting ready to go to the start-finish line.
We may have a start this time by the driver's power uphill. All you can see is sky at this point in the racetrack if you're in the cockpit. Above in the top of the hill is the start-finish line. You look for the flag when you look up to the right. Nick Fornoro peaks per tie above the speedway. The green flag is out, and the Provimi-Ville 200 is underway.
Sparks flying very early, and that's from Bobby Rahal. Looks like the underpinning of that car happened all the time in practice, but they do have those skid pads under there.
They have skid pads, Jack, and a full load of fuel. I think that was a little more violent than what they expected, but not completely unexpected. Turn 1, turn 2. There is turn number 3. Now we come down the Moraine Sweep, the second of the three long straightaways here at Road America.
Well, boy, how would you like to be directly behind Bobby Rahal when you saw those sparks on the start? And there they come again. That is out of the ordinary. Boy, that is a problem he's going to have to contend with early going.
Boy, it really is, Jack. As I mentioned, I would have guessed that they predicted that this would occur, but boy, when the track has a little dip in it at these speeds, Rahal is really experiencing a thrill of moment out there.
Now, one of the things that Bobby Rahal has got that the other drivers don't have is a titanium skid pad system, so they can scuff a lot more off of those, so there probably isn't a lot of drag, as you would say, that's going to create a serious problem. But from visibility and in terms of concern by the drivers behind him, it could be a big problem as we work around this racetrack.
I think that's exactly the point, Jack. It's probably more of a problem for the guys trying to follow him as it is for Rahal. You see Roberto Moreno, he's not exactly sure what's going on underneath that True Sports mobile. He's giving him a little bit of distance, a little bit of breathing room. He's going to sit back and see what's going to happen. You can see Rahal hitting bottom all the way around.
Kind of like a smoke screen that the revenuers used to throw up as they tried to get around the rest of the guys there running moonshine.
Wow.
But I've never seen it on a race course like this. Fireworks, 4th of July, and the front end of the car is where the sparks are coming from.
It looks like the bottom of the nose might be touching, although there are so many sparks, it really doesn't look like fiberglass or any type of structure like that. It does look like metal. I would say that's the skid pad, but maybe they're just a little lower than they should be, Jack, in the front end.
Well, you know, titanium does throw up a lot of sparks. It looks like 4th of July on a Sunday afternoon here at Road America. But look at the impressive lead that's being built up right now. There's the separation. Rahal is in second position. Going into turn number 1, your leader continues to be that front-running machine of, well, there's Bobby Rahal, actually.
Boy, that is really spectacular. By the way, look at the sky and all these shots all the way around these 4 miles. We told you at the top of the show the weather continues to get just a little worse every minute as this race goes on. We have not had any rain, and Jeff Brabham has pulled into the pits early. Right now, fuel going into the machine, the car going up on jacks. Here's a guy who was fast a week ago at the Michigan International Speedway, but crashed early on and performed so well here on ESPN on the road course at Cleveland.
If it wasn't just for Cleveland, you'd have to say that for this guy, Jeff Brabham and Rick Gallus and his team, if it wasn't for bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. He's always run strong. He's showing a lot of promise. Remember at the Meadowlands when he was running so well, and he was involved in that altercation with Rahal and Andretti?
An innocent victim. He just signed, as a matter of fact, yesterday for 2 more years. Rick Gallus has signed him on, so Jeff Brabham will be the driver of the Gallus car, which they hope will be the Coors Silver Bullet for the next couple of years.
Taking a look back in the field of 5th, 6th, and 7th, that's the battle that seems to be enjoined at the present time. Al Unser Jr. in the middle of your screen at the present time, battling away as they work down through. Running in the 6th position looks to be Alan Jones. A good run for Jones thus far.
And once again, let's pick up the subject about Al Unser Jr. pitting before the green flag fell. He was able to get back up into his position, and what he has now is 4 more miles of fuel than what everybody else has. Everyone stayed out on the 2 parade laps, but Al Unser Jr. picked up 4 more miles because he stopped after lap number 1. Maybe they thought in practice, Jack, they were cutting a little close.
Well, I think it's a good move. It's a calculated risk. But, boy, I tell you, there's a good battle going on there. Jacques Villeneuve also involved with Al Unser Jr.
Well, it continues to get more and more cloudy, but Danny Sullivan continues to move further and further away from the rest of the field. Sullivan is the early leader here at the Provimeville 200 at Road America. Now, all sorts of things are happening at Elkhart Lake. Roberto Moreno has moved around Bobby Rahal. He has taken second position. Steve Chassis has dropped out of this race with an oil pickup problem after just 3 laps. Michael Andretti is beginning to show some smoke, although he runs in the top 10. And on top of everything else, Jack, we've got a report that it's raining in turn 11.
Well, the rain is going to come. There's no question about it. And when it comes, what will these drivers do? What choice of tires will they make? But you know, it was interesting. We've got a car off the race course here.
It
can't really
like
tell
just
right
past
now.
Turn number 3, he's outside of our camera range. He may have just gone off into the dust and then got back onto course. The initial report is that might have been Unser. We don't know if that means Al Sr. or Al Jr., but one of the Unsers apparently have gone off course in turn number 3, but everybody seems to be back up to speed, and no debris is littering there the outside of turn number 3.
You know that move by Moreno, I think it was a good calculated move. What happened is I think he saw all those sparks in the early going and said, whoa, discretion is the better part of valor. I'm going to let things shake down a little bit, and then I'm going to try and take that position back away from Rahal. He did precisely that, and he's beginning to pull away from Bobby Rahal now.
He really is a very impressive performance for Roberto Moreno, the young Brazilian who is making his IndyCar debuts in 1985. He is the designated hitter, if you will. There's Bobby Rahal still hitting bottom of Rick Gallus. He is the man who Gallus has tapped to drive the Valvoline car for this week. Gary Lee is down in the pit area, and there's beginning to be some activity down there because of the rain.
Well, indeed, this is the mark of a well-prepared team. The Gatorback rain tires, because last night we had a 20% chance. That chance of thunderstorms increased to 40% this morning, and as Jack said, we will get rain. It's only a matter of time. However, there are only certain teams prepared with these rain tires in the pit area. That could cause a serious problem should we get the weather.
Boy, do you want to talk, Larry, about a busy place? It's going to be the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company shed as they try to mount all those rain tires.
You're right, Jack. They thought they had their hands full at Michigan International. They're going to have their hands full here.
Amen.
R.A. Luyendijk in car number 61. He's the guy who made his debut in IndyCar last year here. He is the home state man. He runs, of course, for the Provimeville people. They are involved in sponsoring of this race. They took the Michigan International Speedway race off last week so they could prepare for this race, and apparently it worked. Over 170 miles an hour for the leaders that time coming down the Marine Sweep. Luyendijk has been in the top 5 basically all weekend long, and he's perched there right now.
don't take our word for it that the speeds down that Moraine sweep are 170 to 180 miles an hour. We have a gentleman located back there with a police-type radar gun, and he's giving us those shuttle speeds as they come down, and brake hard and get ready for turn 5.
Well, there is third place Bobby Rahal, fourth place Roberto Guerrero, and fifth place Ari Lyondike. Lyondike and Roberto seem to be moving in on Rahal. Rahal not necessarily slowing because of that problem, but maybe he is anticipating a stop for rain. Or maybe just the way that car is set up, that little bit of extra slipperiness there at the entrance of the backstretch is a problem for Bobby.
Or maybe it's a little bit of a gamble in terms of fuel strategy as well. Let's not forget that if you get hung out here about 15 feet beyond the pit area and you've got to make 4 more additional miles with one of these cars, you're going to have a lot of problems.
Roberto Guerrero in the car number 9, the blue and white car that Dan Cotter fields IndyCar Racing, appears to be moving in on Rahal. It's not been a rapid ascension, but Lyondike is really holding his own also on the number 9 car of Roberto.
Now, what happens to Guerrero when he looks up now trying to chase down Rahal for that position, and he begins to see the sparks? He's got to go through that whole Moreno incident all over again. Try to file it away, say, what is it? Can I go to the inside? He takes a look. See? He takes the sparks. He sees it. He's, whoa, wait a minute. I'm going to back out of the throttle for a minute.
Absolutely. I don't know that Roberto has had a chance to see it firsthand exactly what's going on underneath Bobby Rahal's car, but now he's looking real carefully as what's going on here. And I think, like you said, Jack, he had second thoughts, but it'll just take him about a half a lap to figure out that's just the old traditional skid pad.
Well, how about when you're driving down the highway and you see a stone come off a dump truck? You back out of the throttle for a moment.
This may be the move right here. Guerrero goes to the inside of Rahal, down the Marine sweep. Rahal tries to hold on, but he's out of the groove, and Roberto moves underneath. Roberto Guerrero moving into third spot. Here comes Rahal back.
Tried it, came up through the gearbox. They hit about 118 miles an hour as they come up the hill, but it was no going for Bobby Rahal. Guerrero takes over the position.
Gary Lee is monitoring the situation down in the pits as everybody's beginning to mount rain tires, plus also monitor how are things going with the fuel consumption. Gary.
Fuel consumption is a concern. I just walked up to Steve Horn, who is the crew chief for Bobby Rahal. I said, are you running a conservative pace? He smiled and said yes and walked away. Now, we saw a bit of strategy unfold before the race actually began when Al Jr. made a pit stop. They simply topped off the fuel. They were able to add only 2 gallons. But that represents about 1 lap here at Elkhart Lake, and that 1 lap could make the difference. So there is major concern over both fuel and weather.
Well, Jack, everybody expects as Rahal continues to show fire underneath that march, everybody expects it will take 2 pit stops. But some of the teams throughout practice, they found out they were marginal. And Doug Scherson, who often works with a closed hand until it gets right down to the point of action, I think they probably figured out, hey, we need just a little bit of extra fuel to make it on 2 stops. And maybe we got to go to the third one, and we'll do that during the pace lap.
Well, I think you're right, and I think it was a fine move by Scherson. But the thing that I'm questioning right now are the sparks that continue to come from Bobby Rahal. You know, that's got to be a problem. Now, Lyondike's got to take a look at the inside just to see if it's something terminal on the car. He gets by Rahal, but I really question, even though it's nothing that's going to damage the race car, it's that titanium, it really causes a lot of consternation for these drivers when they come up behind Rahal's Budweiser car.
I would imagine there's a little bit of caution in the Budweiser True Sports pit because they've had a lot of misfortune this year. Bobby Rahal is very good on race courses. And I would suggest that should it rain, this might be an advantage for somebody like Rahal. Emerson Fittipaldi, obviously, also had an advantage, as well as Alan Jones, who runs in about 10th or 11th position. But Danny Sullivan, the man who won this year's Indianapolis 500, right now is making a shambles of the field. He leads with 6 of 50 laps completed. You are looking at first and second place here at Elkhart Lake. Danny Sullivan goes out of the frame, and here comes Roberto Moreno. Who? Yes, if you have not been following IndyCar racing closely, you might be asking, who is Roberto Moreno? He is the guy that Rick Gallis has tapped to drive this week, and he's really doing an excellent job. A year ago, when we visited here at the Road America, Tom Sneva had the points lead. Mario Andretti was second, Rick Mears third. Michael Andretti was fourth and still had hopes of a championship. Jeff Brabham fifth, Al Unser Jr. sixth, and Danny Sullivan seventh. We know it came down to be a 4-car battle until Rick Mears got hurt later in the year. The current standings, however, show Mario Andretti, evidence of the great year he's had so far atop the point standings. He will be missing, of course, this race. Al Unser Sr. with a chance to take over the lead, as well as Emerson Fittipaldi, and Al Unser Jr. with a good finish and a bad finish by all the others could really move up in the standings also. But the leader of the race so far to this point as he goes down the backstretch, Danny Sullivan. Holly Hollywood Danny Sullivan. One of Playgirl's 10 most available bachelor Danny Sullivan. Winner of this year's Indianapolis 500. He is a Charger, Jack.
No question about it. He's also pretty flamboyant, a change of the type of race driver that we're used to. He's just as aware of his image as maybe a Hollywood actor like a Paul Newman or somebody like that would be, but he's a very, very tough, demanding race car driver, especially on the IndyCar circuit this year.
Joining us in the booth is a man that I'm rather proud to introduce to you, because I want to tell you that I was in the pit area when this guy made his qualifying run at Indianapolis this year after having been bumped. It's Derek Daly. I'll tip you off. And I saw him take that race car faster than he had practiced all month long, with a great deal of courage. It was controlled. You were calm. But it had to be a very, very gutsy run. He's qualified for this year's Indianapolis 500. Derek Daly, welcome.
Thank you, Larry. It's good to be here.
Derek, watching Bobby Rahal's situation, what if you were a driver trying to follow him? Would that be a concern of yours?
Very much so. But from Bobby's point of view, although it's very difficult to pick it up on the screen, when you have skid blocks hit the ground quite as hard as he has, it upsets the handling dramatically. Because as soon as the chassis hits the ground, it takes the weight off the front wheels, which upsets the handling as he turns into corners and very much upsets the braking. So the problem Bobby has is it's not the type of thing they can fix in their first pit stop. Usually they can fix a wing adjustment or stuff like that. But with ride heights, which they've obviously set too low, it's impossible for him to change it during his first stop.
And no caution flag, so there will be no such thing as a leisure pit stop. We're looking at Ari Leyendijk, who's turning in a good race. Right in front of him is Michael Andretti. I saw smoke from that car earlier in the race, Derek, and the last time he went through turn number 5, a big piece of flame shot out of what looks like the top of the block. Any thoughts on that?
It's so hard to know, Larry, just looking at it from here. It looks as if it's cleared up. Michael obviously is not aware of it at the moment because he's running so strongly, so we're just going to have to give him another 3 or 4 or 5 laps to let that develop and just see how it goes.
Well, for Michael's teammate Kevin Cogan, it was a very short day, and Gary Lee is there.
Kevin, the Crayco team has been picking up momentum throughout the mid part of the season, but obviously not a good day for you. What put you out?
Well, it was running really good at the beginning, and we picked up about 5 places on the first lap, and I thought it was really going to go fast. And then all of a sudden, about the end of the first lap, I noticed it started to go soft, and I looked down at the rev counter, and it was picking up less and less revs every lap at the end of the straightaway. So basically, I think it blew right at the, right when I dropped out.
How were the track conditions? We had a Trans Am race earlier. I feel a sprinkle of rain right now. Is it slick out there?
Yeah, it is. It's slick in a couple places, mainly because the track seemed to be coming up in 2 or 3 patches, and it did seem to be a little slick on the back in 11 and 12, so it might be just a little bit wet.
Of course, once again, we can feel some raindrops, so that well could change the complexion of this race.
Well, Danny Sullivan continues to lead. Kevin Cogan, by the way, had worked his way up to 7th in the point standings. He is 8th in terms of number of laps completed, but that will be shortchanged today. Derek, what about a slippery racetrack? That can be a very unusual problem, particularly when you got the threat of rain.
That's right. On turn 5, where the cars have just gone through, yesterday after the final Trans Am run, it did begin to break up. Now, these cars are about 1,500 pounds or just above. They run on very sticky, slick tires. These will churn this racetrack up if there's any weak spot at all. So I would think, as Kevin said, there's a couple of patches coming now. If it's happening this early in the race, it could be trouble, potential trouble for the drivers on it. In other words, they've just got to run one very tight groove on particular corners like that if it happens.
Well, the hot shoe right now, Jack, excuse me, is Michael Andretti. We talked about him earlier. He's in 4th position. He's going after 3rd, Jack.
Roberto Guerrero has been losing ground. You could see Roberto in the picture there, look in his mirror to size up Michael Andretti and see just where he was. Andretti has begun to turn the wick up just a tad, and is closed periodically, especially in some of the tighter corners on that battle for 3rd position. That's what Guerrero holds right now.
Okay, this will be a 50-lap race, 4 miles around, times 4, that's 200 miles. Figure everybody to go between 16 and 19 laps on a load of fuel. We have completed 9 laps, so we're about midway or a little bit more than midway on this first load of fuel. Sullivan continues to lead. Roberto Moreno is 2nd. Roberto Guerrero is 3rd. Michael Andretti, right there on your screen, is 4th. Ari Leyendijk is 5th. Bobby Rahal, 6th. Al Unser Jr., 7th. There is Roberto Guerrero, who right now runs in 3rd spot. Jacques Villeneuve is 8th. Alan Jones is 9th, and car number 22, Raul Boisel, is in 10th position. Al Unser Sr., by the way, a challenging 11th.
Well, that white smoke continues to show periodically from beneath Michael Andretti's car. taking a look at the leaders, meanwhile, working their way around the racetrack, and Roberto Moreno is close to within 0.4 of a second of your leader, Danny Sullivan. Sullivan working through turn 5, getting ready for that 110, 115 mile per hour trip back up through turn 6, getting ready for the run through the hurry downs one more time. But when he looks in the mirror now, he sees that Valvoline Hawk of Roberto Moreno.
Well, gearing is so critical on a road course. You have to come up with a compromise, really, because you can't set up for all 4 light corners like you can on an oval. It's something the teams really have to spend a great deal of time on, particularly at a racetrack that's 4 miles in length, like Road America. That's Sullivan. This is the fastest corner on the racetrack, talking about gears. You really want to be good there because it leads on to a high-speed, fast straightaway. So not only do you want to be fast in the turn, but also on the corner. Sullivan leads. Roberto Moreno runs in second. One of the features of ESPN flag-to-flag coverage is track facts, which seems to be growing in popularity every year. We talked about gearing. Here's another look at how do you gear on a road course.
Someday when you're feeling racy and you drive onto the interstate and decide to go through the gears, it may take you 15 to 20 seconds from 1st to 5th in your passenger car. In a championship car, about 6 to 8 seconds. And there's not much movement in the cockpit. There's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Football is a game of inches. Auto racing is a game of micro inches. Danny Sullivan continues to lead. Roberto Moreno in 2nd. Roberto Carrero is in 3rd. Michael Andretti 4th. Ari Lyondike 5th. And Alan Jr. 6th. As we watch the leaders, Danny Sullivan in the red and white Miller American 4 and Roberto Moreno in the Valvoline Hawk, number 6. 1st and 2nd place. Moreno is getting closer to Sullivan repeatedly, lap after lap, although Danny seems to be putting a little bit of daylight there, coming around turn number 13 and turn number 14. We have a new 3rd place car. Michael Andretti, despite what we think might be a problem underneath the power plant of that car, has now moved up to 3rd position. Michael started in 10th. He is about 5 seconds or so behind the 2 leaders, but Moreno is stalking. Derek, if you were Roberto Moreno, based on what you've seen so far, where do you think is his best chance?
I think Roberto will be anxious to get to the front as soon as possible. He came here this weekend to show what he could do, and at the moment he's trying to show not only the people here in Elkhart but the world how good he is, because recently he's been testing the Tolman Formula 1 car, which sat on the pole for the German Grand Prix today. Moreno wants to drive Formula 1 or else maybe with Rick Gallis for next year, and he thinks he can best show his ability bonding at the front. He will take the first chance he can get to sneak by Sullivan.
Gary Lee is down in the pits, has been monitoring the progress of Roberto Guerrero. Gary?
We had alluded earlier to a possible problem in the turbocharger with boost for Guerrero. Obviously, it's not a problem with the turbocharger, but he has broken the boost gauge in the cockpit. So he is trying manually to adjust the boost, trying to get it just as high as he can without activating the pop-off valve, and that can be difficult on a road course.
Well, it may sound easy, but you got your hands full on a road course.
Precisely the point I was going to bring up. It's not one of those deals that you can do. It's a very imprecise measurement, but Derek, most of the drivers do have the little hose that they can run to the back, so now it becomes a trick with your ears, so to speak, to try and find out just when it hisses to be able to use that pop-off valve effectively.
That's right, Jack, and the thing is, you may do 10 laps and never hear the valve go off and think you can just sneak another little bit of boost out of it, another half an inch, give you just the little edge you need, and suddenly the valve opens and you lose time. So it's a little bit of a strategy with Roberto. I think at this early stage in the race, he may be content just to let it go 10 or 15 laps and just see does he need to make any more adjustments.
Well, one of the things that I'd be a little concerned about is you've got to worry about the rain, you've got to worry about the boost, you've got to worry about all these factors. Roberto Guerrero is going to have a heck of a ride today.
He's good enough. He can handle it.
Al Unser Sr., the Pennzoil Z7 Special. Here's a guy who did not have, we've said it many times, a regular ride for the 1985 season, and all of a sudden here, he is a real threat for championship. Well, last week, he was embroiled in a controversy when he thought he had a chance to win the Michigan race, blocked by Tom Steele, he said.
When Mario Andretti crashed last week at the Michigan 500, he suffered a hairline fracture of his hip socket and a broken collarbone. The injuries have kept him from driving here this weekend and have offered up a unique opportunity to Al Unser Sr. Sr. could take over the points lead for the PPG title and drop Andretti from the top spot for the first time this season.
Sure, I would like to do it, but I feel sorry for Mario because he's worked very hard, and those things happen once in a while, and that's all you can say. But, you know, we'll just have to go at it and see what we can do, but hopefully we can do it.
The Michigan race also saw a confrontation of other sorts between Al Unser Sr. and Tom Sneva. On the final lap, and although one lap down, Sneva raced hard with Unser, who was on the lead lap, trying to chase down eventual winner Emerson Fittipaldi. Some say Sneva blocked Al.
Well, it's really a shame that a driver of his caliber supposedly has to pull what he did up there on me. With being a lap down, there just isn't enough words to say that he is being so wrong in what he did. But he did it, and there's nothing more that anybody can say. You can't go back on it. It's just a shame. I hope that maybe Cart or somebody will maybe straighten him out.
Ask Tom Sneva, though, and he'll give you an entirely different view of the incident.
Well, number one, at that point in the race, we've got Rutherford and Al Unser behind us. We have no idea that we're not running those people for a position on the racetrack. So we've got to run the last lap as hard as we can, assuming that we're running for a position, and that's what we got to assume.
Well, I think he's wrong. I think he knew he was on that lap, and why he pulled what he pulled, I don't know. Even if you come down and you're fighting for position, I don't think that our racing fraternity should be doing the things that he did to me the last lap. And if it continues, I think Cart should step in and stop it, penalize him or set him down for a while.
Al Unser Sr., the Pennzoil Z7, you hear his side of the story. You heard Tom Sneva's. Many of you have seen the tapes now from what happened at Michigan International last week, and a lot of you, I know, are dyed-in-the-wool racing fans, so make your call. By the way, while we're discussing that controversy, a new leader, Roberto Moreno, has taken over the #1 spot. He found a way to get around Danny Sullivan, while all of us were tuned into the Al Unser story. There is Roberto Moreno. Not only is he around Danny Sullivan, but Jack, he has got, it looks like a football field already between himself and Danny.
Well, we'll get a good look at the separation as we work out of the carousel turn here. Moreno having Rick Gallus's car running to perfection this afternoon, getting ready to come out of the, what we call the carousel for the trip down the backstretch. There's Moreno. You know, he was second in the Formula 2 standings last year, and this is kind of reminiscent of the turn to America that one Teo Bobby made a couple of years ago, and he kind of looks like Teo a little bit too when you take a look at him. I wonder if all the foreigners have that Bobby look.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There is somewhat of a Bobby look about him, and I might also add he was very gracious and very kind, and he really is a nice addition to IndyCar racing. About 5-6 years ago, when everybody started to show up, including the guy next to me, I must admit I'm doing a little bit of a homer job as we look at Mario, or rather at Michael Andretti, who's doing so well. I kind of resented the fact there were so many foreign drivers coming, but you guys are a pretty good group.
Well, I think so, yes. There we go.
We're going to interrupt what we're talking about here as the leader, Danny Sullivan, in the pits. Gary.
We have him down here. It's a routine stop. They're changing all 4 tires, topping off the 40 gallons of alcohol. Again, it was a planned stop. That's why he relinquished the lead. But they're late now in getting the right front on. This could become a long stop. Now that's off the jacks. He almost kills the engine. Revs it up and powers away.
You know, had it not been for the victory at the 500 this year, this would be a little testy year for these guys. Lots of smoke on the race course. It looks like Emerson Fittipaldi make it Bruno. It's Emerson's backup car, but the orange helmet tells us it's Bruno.
Second car of the weekend for Bruno Giacomelli. Bruno, of course, trashed one real good early in practice, and he went to the backup car. And remember, we alluded to the fact that he was going to have a problem. Look at this. Roberto Guerrero, has he run out of fuel? Let's go to Gary Lee. Maybe Gary can update us.
Well, we're on our way up to Guerrero right now, but we're not there yet, so we'll throw it back to you and then come back momentarily.
Leaving the pits with Raul Boisel. Roberto Guerrero stalling coming out of the pits. Here comes the leader, Roberto Moreno. He has not made his pit stop yet. Now we go back to check on Bruno Giacomelli, who is still dismounting from the STP Valvoline number 20 car. As Jack told you, he crashed very hard in practice. And by the way, we saw a very quick glimpse on videotape of that crash. and that car was definitely coming apart before Bruno crashed off of the racetrack. It is, by the way, the same car and chassis that Bruno crashed this week that Sammy Swindell had raced a week ago at the Michigan International Speedway.
And this was the car that captured the Michigan 500, as we understand it. And look, we've got another car that has slowed down. Could he be out of gas? That's Randy Lanier in a Lola. So we're beginning to get into the pit stop time, and where the strategy pays off. And remember, we said you go beyond that pit entrance, and you've got 4 more miles to go, and that's a good 2 gallons of fuel.
Well, the leader, Roberto Moreno, coming in. We're going to get a comment from Derek Daly about the fuel situation, but we definitely want to monitor this stop. One of the 2 yellow helmeted drivers who occupied row number 2. Both of them are Ford drivers.
Look at the problem with the front tire. The front tire changer on the left side is having a problem getting it off.
The left side of the car has not come off the ground.
The left side is down on the ground, and this is a real costly stop for the leader, Roberto Moreno. They still haven't corrected that problem.
Moreno's saying leave the tires on, look.
Apparently he's saying the wear is satisfactory. I'd rather leave the tire on. Now it finally goes up. But boy, this has cost him an inordinate amount of time. Roberto Moreno after a great drive. Derek.
Such a shame, such a shame. Roberto could have easily won this race. This has probably taken him completely out of the leaderboard.
And if only that crew member that went to the right side there, if he had been able to lean on that tire early on, they would have been able to make the exchange. That's costly.
There's Alan Jones. You see him pulling out right behind Roberto. Roberto had about a 20 or 30-second lead on Jones, who was running in about 7th or 8th position. I don't remember exactly what, but you can see how closely Jones has moved up to Roberto. Danny Sullivan reassumes the lead.
Well, I hate to see that. I hate to see a pit strategy like that cost the driver so dearly for Roberto Moreno. But what a good run for Alan Jones today. You know, Alan has not been in a competitive car, actually a single-seater, for over 2 years, and he's getting ready to go back out there and test that Beatrice Lola that's going to be in competition on the Formula One circuit there.
I spoke to Alan yesterday, and he says he is definitely a little bit rusty at the moment, but however, he's looking to this race to introduce him to open wheel racing in preparation for his Formula One debut.
And look who's the leader now. Al Unser Jr. has appropriated the lead, and remember, he's got that situation where he gathered in 1 extra lap. Larry, he had that situation where he took the fuel on early.
Well, maybe the strategy of 1 extra cop-off, 1 extra 4-mile segment of fuel will pay off for Al Unser Jr. He is the first, or rather the last, among the leaders to come in. He continues on the race course. That's the backstretch here at Road America, and Al Unser Jr. continues to lead this race. Al Unser Jr. will be pitting in just a couple minutes. Can Danny Sullivan catch him? We'll see right after this. Tom Sneva on 3 wheels, motorboating it down the Moraine sweep, looking for a way to get out of the harm's way. Tom Sneva losing a right rear wheel. He just came into the pits for a pit stop, and maybe it wasn't just seated on properly. There you see Sneva taking an access road, one of the emergency escape routes, and he went down and went out among the spectators. Gary Lee is down in the pit area with an update.
Malcolm Hall is now being tended to here in the Roberto Guerrero pit area. He was working on the right rear of the car during that most recent pit stop. The car was released from the air jacks and actually ran over his right foot. So right now the paramedics are working down here with what could be either a very badly bruised ankle or perhaps even a broken ankle. So that's the situation right now in the Roberto Guerrero pit. And gentlemen, it is continuing the very light sprinkle activity here in the pit area.
Gary, were there any change to rain tires, or is everybody stuck with the slicks so far?
No, no one has changed. In fact, it's not raining nearly hard enough for that. As Derek Daly can tell you, it's a lot easier to run in this kind of weather. In fact, even if it starts to rain a little harder with the slicks than what it is to go with the rain tires. So it'll have to rain a lot harder than this before we see stops to change tires.
Well, just an update on the Al Unser Jr. situation. Yes, he has stopped. He is in the lead. He had a great pit stop. Danny Sullivan runs second.
A rule of thumb, Larry, for the viewers watching. Unless you see spray come off the wheels, these drivers will stay on slicks.
Derek, one other thing about the fuel consumption. Now, you guys have fuel flow meters. You can check, obviously, the fuel consumption during practice. You have the little red light that comes on. What happens when you run out of fuel on a course? I mean, is it the fact that this course is so long that the little red light makes no difference?
You hope, Larry, that the red light is absolutely perfect, but sometimes you set it as it should be, you think you set it perfectly, and it doesn't work right. It may blink on, it may just not give you the exact reading that it should. Hence, on a 4-mile track particularly, if you run out of turn 3, you're finished. You can't make it back.
Here is a contest for 5th position. Alan Jones and Ari Lyondike going at it. Jonesy was by him for a while. Now he's coming back. He goes to the inside. He uses the old crossover mover. That's Rahal, stand corrected. Ari Lyondike holds on, but Lyondike and Rahal, who no longer is scraping bottom, are battling for 5th. Ari Lyondike in the Provimi Deal Peak number 61. We told you he made his debut here a year ago. He would really like to perform well before the home state crowd. There are a lot of people in the stands as well as up and down the hillsides here at Elkhart Lake this day that know Ari well. He lives just up the road a piece in Heartland. He, of course, moved over from Oss Holland a couple years ago. He never really expected to be a big-time Indianapolis car driver. We saw him in the Super Vs about 3 or 4 seasons ago. He came over last year, and as a native Hollander, he kind of identified with Ott Groeneveld. He got the Super V ride for Provimi and became champion, and they rewarded him with an IndyCar ride.
Indeed, Ari's been right on the pace all weekend here. They came here and tested and came away as the top 2 or 3 runner. And he's looked good. He's been confident. And here's the results of all their work.
And the results of the pit stop have begun to show again on Bobby Rahal's car. The sparks have returned for those titanium skid blocks. So it's obvious that it's only when he carries a full load of fuel till he gets down maybe about the halfway mark to begin to go away.
Jeff Brabham is back in the pits again. Remember, he had that painfully long pit stop in the early stages of this race. He's certainly out of contention for victory, but in a race like this, we're going to go 200 miles, 50 laps. If he stays out there, you never know, he might get a good points finish. Jeff Brabham, his best finish so far in 1985 has been a 2nd place at Cleveland. It's a race that really he felt he could have won, but there were just a few little nagging problems that kept him out of victory lane. He's a guy also that I ice raced with this past winter, Jack, up in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and he's already announced that he's going back.
Well, it'll be fun to go ice racing, but right now there's no ice racing going on the racetrack. It's a contest between 2 of the young Turks on the circuit, Al Unser Jr. and Danny Sullivan. Going through the carousel, Unser seems to be running fine, but taking a look, let's see if Danny tries to look to the inside. Now he thinks better of it, and they'll work down the backstretch.
Road America, Provimi Deal 200, Al Unser Jr. We told you at the top of the show, he is really on a hot streak right now, but here comes Danny Sullivan, and for Danny Sullivan, he's got to be smiling a little bit in the cockpit because he hasn't had very much success lately. The car has been breaking down. It's been little nagging problems that have kept them from being real, and Sullivan is slowing down significantly.
All of a sudden, something's gone wrong on Danny Sullivan's car. He just plain stopped. It's a good thing that it's happening where it is. It's almost to the entrance to pit road. Let's see if he'll be able to make the run, because remember, it's uphill.
Absolutely.
Larry, he's still got to go uphill. He's coming out of turn 14. I question whether he's going to be able to make it. And isn't this where he broke last year?
Absolutely. I think so. It's where Danny caught on fire and ended up underneath one of our broadcast towers. There's Danny Sullivan. There's no way he's going to make it uphill, and I think the gremlins have struck again. Danny Sullivan, who had that spectacular spin and win in this year's Indianapolis 500, has shown us tremendous speed at the beginning of another IndyCar race, but it is not to be. Sullivan looks like it's terminal out of this race here at Elkhart Lake.
The Hollywood script for Danny has not been written properly since his fine win at Indianapolis.
No, there have been some indications that maybe it might work out that way, but it looks like it will not be that way today. Now the question becomes Al Unser. He didn't show all that peacock speed in the early stages, but right now, after the first pit stop, he looks very strong. STP presents now the Inside Track Report, brought to you by STP. On the world's racetracks, on the world's roads, depend on STP, your car care company. You know, the talk this week at Elkhart Lake has been as much about a missing champion as about those who have been here performing so well this weekend. Mario Andretti, for the first time in his 28-year driving career, will miss a race this weekend because of a personal injury. He was injured at the Michigan International Speedway last week, suffering a cracked hip socket and a broken clavicle. Alan Jones, who will drive the Beatrice Haas Formula One car later this season, will substitute for Mario this weekend here in Wisconsin. It's the first time Alan has ever driven an Indianapolis car. You know, that race was postponed 1 week. Some said it was because of faulty tire construction, and others said it's because the track was too hard on equipment. Well, here's Jack Arute with more on that story.
Thanks, Larry. All of us know the 1 week delay that was precipitated by problems at Michigan International Speedway. Initial reports were that it was due to some problems with the radial tires that were originally to be used during the 500-mile contest. There were some problems, as Bobby Rahal explains. I think everybody, not just the drivers, but I think the crew chiefs particularly, thought that unless we knew definitively what the problem was, it wasn't worth risking it. And you know, you can get flat tires in a bias tire. I mean, I don't think it's a condemnation of the radial tire at all. In fact, I think after the race last weekend, a lot of people would have said they'd rather have been on the radials, me included. And, you know, we've done a lot of development for Goodyear on those radials. So, but I think the general consensus was that until we know for sure, we shouldn't risk it. Calvin Lint is the assistant manager for the championship tire division of Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. Calvin, after the Michigan 500, you took the radials back to Akron. What did you find out?
Basically, after examination, we have not found anything to be in any way different or a problem that might cause what we saw there.
Well, what was interesting to me was the week following, when you went back with the bias ply tires, the problem seemed to continue.
Well, I think basically the racing between the radial tire and the bias tire was basically the same. You saw the same type of crashes or whatever, speeds were a little bit slower with bias. So I think basically it wasn't too much difference.
So the debate continues here at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, as to whether the Michigan incident was precipitated by tires or possibly by the track. It's really become a moot issue, however, because we're back on the road course, and radial tires have been tried and proven in left and right-hand turns.
Other names in the news. Ferrari, they have threatened to come to IndyCar racing next year. Well, they have been to America. They've taken a kart rule book back home, and they will definitely vote as to whether or not they come racing IndyCars in 1986. Dick Trickle, he has been named as the Gardner Racing R&D driver for Michigan International Speedway. Bobby Allison, he has a Ford Thunderbird. He may race it for the rest of the season in NASCAR. And Thomas Hitman Hearns, yes, the boxer, who will debut in a drag race for Pro Stocker this weekend in Cleves, Ohio. That's near Cincinnati. This has been the STP Inside Track Report. Stay tuned for more racing from Elkhart Lake in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Normally, this is Green Bay Packer or Wisconsin Badger country. It's the middle of Wisconsin, but we're here today for the Hart PPG IndyCar race at Road America. You know, 3 or 4 years ago, this might have been a Super B race, but this time it's Al Unser Jr., Michael Andretti, and Jacques Villeneuve who are up front here at the Provincial 200.
You know, one of the things, Larry, that's kind of interesting about Road America was the late Cliff Tufte, the founder of Road America, was a civil engineer. And they were racing here about 35 years ago, but they raced in the street. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary this year. And here's the neat part. When they built this racetrack, Cliff Tufte himself drove all around the highways and byways surrounding here, and he was taking a look at what he thought were neat turns. And because he was a civil engineer, he measured them up, and he brought them back, and he laid it out, and he said, I want this turn here on the road course, I want that turn here. And in fact, what he did to make Road America happen is he donated part of the land from his rock quarry. So if you turn around and you drive out of here, let's say back to Milwaukee, you can take a look and take a look-see, and you'll probably see one of the corners.
Roberto Moreno is on the move. Derek, you've been monitoring his progress.
He is the man of the race at the moment because although we haven't seen him very much, he actually gained 2.8 seconds 3 laps ago on Al Unser Jr., 1.3 seconds the next lap, and now he's gaining at about 2 seconds a lap again. So I would think within about 8 or 10 laps, Moreno is going to be back up in second place.
Well, he has now moved up to 4th position. Arie Luyendyk is back to 5th. Moreno is really on the move. Gary Lee down in the pits.
Work continues on the Miller American. What was thought to be a throttle cable break turned out to be more serious. It was actually a broken throttle pedal. It was this hinge area right here that was broken. Consequently, they had to take the spare off the spare car they have parked in the paddock area. It continues. Once they get that repaired, then they have to refuel it. So a very, very costly pit stop for Danny Sullivan.
You know, a lot of people think that all it takes is bravery to be a good race driver, and I don't think the average fan really understands how intricate these race cars are and how many teeny little things can go wrong. And Derek, it's almost an impossible task to be thorough week and day after day after day.
That's right, Larry, and the driver gets all the accolades and he's the hero, but really he only finishes off the job that the mechanics and the team members and the managers have to do.
Al Unser Jr., there is the leader. He has been able to turn back the challenges of Danny Sullivan. Actually, we should say that Danny's throttle turned back the challenges that he was beginning to mount to Al Unser Jr. Here's a guy talking about covering all the bases and keeping all the little details in order. This team has been doing a very good job the last couple of races. They have had 3 top 2 finishes, 2 wins on road courses, and right now, our Unser Jr., by the way, Unser Jr., rather, looks like the man of the hour. Al Unser Jr. moving through the 4-mile course here at the Road America at Elkhart Lake. This is down near the end of the course at turn 12, turn 13, underneath the Billy Mitchell Bridge. Now turn number 14, Roberto Guerrero. He's lost a tire. He's trying to get off course or try and find safety. He is not going to make it back to the pit area, I don't think, going that direction. Can you see exactly where that is on course?
See into turn 5, coming down off of the Marine Sweep, and you know where he was trying to get to. Looked like he was trying to get to that escape road, maybe get back to the pit area, but now the engine's dead, so it's tout fini, as they say, for Guerrero.
Well, Roberto Guerrero has had a very strong year, but it seems like some little thing for him always pops up also for every race. Remember, he was involved in a spectacular, well, spin at the end of this turn a year ago. Roberto Guerrero is out of the race. Al Unser Jr. continues to run. Danny Sullivan is in the pits. We'll be back to Elkhart Lake and Road America after this. This is the Coney Mid-Race Recap, brought to you by Coney, makers of shock absorbers and suspension kits for all performance cars. Coney, proven superior. The pole setter for today's race with another brand new track record, Danny Sullivan at better than 128 miles per hour. Outside of Danny was Bobby Rahal, who also performed well during practice. He went 127 miles an hour and qualified second fastest. Race summary, the laps completed, 25 laps halfway, an average speed of almost 121 miles per hour. There have been 3 leaders and 3 lead changes so far. Among those lap leaders, Danny Sullivan, the pole setter, led laps 1 through 12. Roberto Moreno took over then and led for a couple laps before pit stops, and then Al Unser Jr. leading the last 10 laps or so. Out of race so far, Steve Chassis, Kevin Cogan, Bill Whittington, Dale Coyne, and Bruno Giacomelli. Some exciting moments, including Roberto Guerrero losing a tire and drifting off into the crowd and almost going down to where the spectators stand. This is reminiscent of a couple of weeks ago. The top 10 at this juncture of the race. Leading the race, Al Unser Jr., of course. Michael Andretti is second. Jacques Villeneuve is running in 3rd position, followed by a charging Roberto Moreno. R.A. Lyondike turning in a good performance before the home crowd is 5th. In 6th position at this juncture of the race, Bobby Rahal. Alan Jones is running in 7th. Al Unser Sr. is 8th. Raul Boisel is 9th. And Roberto Guerrero is 10th. Stay with us. Well, the best laid plans often end up in the sand on a road course. Roberto Moreno, yes, he is out after just a tremendous ride. He ran up front. You know, he had that problem in the pit area. He was charging up very quickly, running laps significantly faster than the leader, Al Unser Jr. And there he is, pointing at the camera. He waved to us a little while ago saying, yeah, I'm disappointed, but thanks for being here, guys. Gary Lee is down in the pit area with the story about Tom Sneva's rise.
Tom Sneva, I sometimes think on a road course, you are the personification of Murphy's Law. You were trying to fly the Eagle with a broken wing, and then what happened? Disqualification?
Well, yeah, I guess it was. We lost a tire after a pit stop, so instead of driving all the way around the racetrack and being a tremendous obstacle for everybody, we pulled into the cutoff. They said there, if you stopped, they'd tow us back up to the pit, so you wouldn't get everybody in the racing line and in the way of all the guys that are running at full speed. So we go down there and we sit for a couple minutes, nobody comes around, so then we idle back up the hill to our pits and they disqualify us.
What is your recourse now?
Well, we obviously don't have any right now. You know, we thought, you know, it was pretty poor because we tried to stay out of everybody's way. We did what we were supposed to do and what they asked us to do. And they didn't do what they said they were going to do, and that's tow us back up to the top of the pit. So we idled up, and then they disqualified.
While we can, let's get a comment from car owner Dan Gurney. Do you have any recourse now as far as a protest?
Well, all we can do is complain about what the officials did to us.
And you will do that?
On nationwide television.
All right, consider it done. You've just complained. Tom and Dan Gurney.
By the way, just a little bit of interpretation of Tom Sneva's vocabulary. I've been asked the question many times. The we in Tom's vocabulary is a synonym for I. Here is Al Unser Sr. He continues to lead, but the real interesting story as we watch the leader is Michael Andretti, Derek. He is only 7 seconds behind. He looked to have that problem, at least visually to us earlier. Boy, it hasn't slowed him down at all.
Michael looks very strong. The interesting thing is I spoke to Al yesterday evening after all the running was final, and he wasn't quite happy with his car. He just wasn't happy with the rear suspension, particularly through the carousel where we just see him here now, the next very fast kink. So maybe this little handling problem that he's had all weekend might just give Michael Andretti the little edge he needs.
Boy, what a great day this would be for Andretti and the Creco team. They have been struggling all year trying to make one of those two cars do well. They've had a lot of top 10 finishes. They've run consistently in the top 10, but I think they kind of felt at the beginning of the year that maybe they would be one of the best teams of 1985. You see that Michael has had 7 starts. He's still looking for his very first ever IndyCar win, but I got to believe it's right around the corner. They thought this would be their year, but so far it just hasn't happened.
That's right. Creco is one of the teams that has everything, but suddenly it'll all click, and when it does, they're the type of team that can get on a roll, and Sullivan has been on a roll. And I think if one success came, I think they could be looking good for the rest of the year for success to follow on.
Well, 30 laps have been completed, actually 31 laps, so we are 3/5 of the way through this race. 1 pit stop is down. I got to tell you, Jack, everybody looked like they were really playing it right on the margin with fuel consumption on that first stop. It came about lap 16 or lap 17, and if you add it up, that's just not enough to go the distance on one more pit stop. But everybody probably, I say probably, knows what they're doing, don't they?
Well, I think it's still up for grabs, Larry. You know, laps 16 and 17 will still come up and leave you 2 laps or 8 miles short. So we're going to have to wait and see just what the calculation will be for this next pit stop. That'll be the benchmark, whether these guys will be able to go the distance. And I'm sure Gary will be able to give us some information by doing a quick survey of those fuel tanks down there as well.
Well, just an update, by the way, on Andretti-related situation. Alan Jones, who started 12th, is now 6th. But Michael Andretti has some real strong feelings about certain racetracks. And this one here at Mid-Ohio, or rather at Road America, is one that he really likes. He says that coming here is something special for him.
In taking a survey of the drivers, I would think that this probably would be one of their most favorite tracks to race on. Would you concur? Is it your kind of a racetrack?
Yeah, I really enjoy this track. I think the layout is really great. Also, the way they take care of it. There's not too many racetracks in America that are taken care of like this, and I really enjoy coming up here.
Well, number 6, Roberto Moreno, after sitting there at the bottom of turn number 5, the bottom of Moraine sweep, is back under power. Chances are he'll be coming around the pits because it looked like at least one of his tires were flat spotted after an apparent spin there at the bottom of the second of 3 long straightaways. Michael Andretti, you see him now, he has moved to within 6.3 seconds of the leader. A couple of laps ago, we had him 7 seconds behind, so with 20 seconds to go and at least one more pit stop, this could turn out to be a barn burner yet. Remember that Michael Andretti has never won one of these races, and everybody, to a man that you talk to in the pit area, says this guy's going to win real soon.
Well, it looks like they might be getting ready for pit stops. There's the Michael Andretti pit stop, the pit area. You can see the crew is getting positioned for the quick stop here for Andretti, but Andretti's got to go another 4 miles before he'll even make his presence known on pit road.
Well, he comes in this time, it'll be 33 laps down, 17 laps to go. And if you add it up mathematically, that's not enough. But I got a feeling that everything is going along so routine, I think they know they can squeeze just a little bit more out of this final load.
I wonder, Larry, will that extra 4 miles that Al Unser Jr. bought with that very quick stop that we saw right at the start of the telecast, I wonder if that 4 miles extra is going to pay dividends for Al Unser Jr.
Wouldn't that be interesting? I'd say from what we've seen so far, there is a real possibility that that might happen. Michael Andretti finished 4th at the Meadowlands, New York. He finished 7th at Cleveland. He finished 8th in this year's Indianapolis 500. He has been plagued with engine problems. Really, he's dropped out of 4 races this year when the engine failed to complete the assigned number of laps that the race was scheduled to go. But so far today, things are going along right fine.
And it looks indeed as if he may be nursing that car around trying to get an extra lap. There's Al Unser Sr. coming in for his pit stop, takes on the fuel. You see that little spray coming out of the air bottle there? That's water, just to try and douse down and try and liquefy that fuel so we reduce the danger of fire here.
And take a photographic picture of that number 5 there, by the way. I don't know exactly how he does it, but somehow it seems at the end of every race, he's a factor. And if a couple guys have problems up front, he seems like he's always a threat to win. Al Unser Sr., without a doubt, one of the most intelligent drivers, I think, that IndyCar racing has seen.
Well, let's take a look at what Al Unser Sr. We said, well, the leader's coming in the pit, so what we're going to do is we'll talk about Sr. later.
Al Unser Jr., the left front tire comes off routinely. The man in the bright green hat puts it on without incident. If you go to the right side, they're going to change tires on all four sides of the race car, an indication even more that they plan on definitely going the distance. He comes in on lap number 33, and Gary Lee is there.
And we have Michael Andretti here, and they are indeed concerned about their fuel consumption. It is not as high as it should be. They're not getting the fuel economy in the Graco Electrolux number 99. They change the left side tires, top off the fuel. Not a particularly fast stop at this point. And indeed, gentlemen, you might see some raindrops now because it is raining harder here in the pit area. A very, very lengthy stop now for Michael. The visor's up, trying to get some cool air in. He is shaking his head no. Now they're trying to, well, there was a sign first to get out from in front of the car so he could get underway, but a very, very costly, lengthy pit stop for Michael Andretti.
I'll tell you what that looked like, guys. It looked like maybe there was a fuel feed problem from the tank because they kept the vent hose in there an awfully long time.
Well, I think it started out with they were going to milk every single ounce of fuel they could get. As we look at Alan Jones coming to a stop, this is Michael's father's normal ride, of course. Alan substituting for Mario. This appears to be very routine, but I thought in the beginning of that Michael Andretti situation that they were just trying to get every last ounce of fuel into that race car. But, Jack, I think you're right. They seem to have some type of fueling problem as the pit stop wore on.
And did you see the little miscue? Did you see the little miscue on Alan Jones when the left front tire changer had the tire that he removed roll over onto his air jack, and there was a hose there, and he couldn't get it. He had to move it off. That was costly for him.
Derek, what about it when you're sitting in the pits like that? Obviously, Michael knows that they're very close on fuel. It's got to be frustrating sitting there, and what you do is drive race cars, but now you just got to sit and wait.
That's right. The driver is in a completely helpless situation. And interesting you say on a pit stop, when they did my heart monitor at Long Beach 2 years ago, my heart was at its very highest beat when I made my first pit stop. So the driver is definitely in a very, very anxious situation while he's on the air jacks.
Well, Al Unser Jr. has been among the lap leaders season long this year. He is third in that classification. Danny Sullivan, by the way, has led the second most number of laps, and guess who? Mario Andretti, the guy that normally drives that red car with the big, bold white number 1 on it, is the leader in laps led for 1985. 33 laps have been completed. Everybody hopes that they have made their final fuel stop, but remember again, harken back to that stop during the pace lap by Al Unser Jr. Will that be the difference? He has a little bit of an edge over Michael Andretti, but only time will tell. Al Unser Jr. continues to lead.
Stock market crash in history.
Drivers an opportunity for another one of their specialties, Paul Story, the one that got away.
Many got away.
Well, Bobby Rahal has come to the pit area during that trip that we took out onto Lake Michigan, and rain tires were taken off, and somebody has crashed. It looks like Jose Garza. There's fire. Jose Garza, it appears to be in the backstretch, has made significant raw contact. Jose moving around. The fire, I think, has breathed and snuffed itself out. Jose, however, wasting no time as he makes hard contact with the inside of the guardrail just down the road a piece from where Bruno Giacomelli stopped early in the race. You can see the debris left from Jose's car as he makes real significant contact there with the Armco.
I think, Larry, the car's on fire. You see Jose trying to get the fire extinguisher? I think you can just see the flame on the right-hand side.
See the flame. Well, Jose coming out of the carousel. At that point, you pick up to about 135, 140, 145 miles an hour, and you are on your way to about 175. And normally what happens if you get off course on the inside, it breaks loose from you just a little bit coming out of the carousel. And when you hit it and that turbocharger kicks in, the car breaks loose. And if you're not pointed in the right direction, get off on the grass, you've got problems.
That's right. I think that's 3 cars in 1 week the Machinist Union team have lost. So they're going to be very stretched to get enough machinery together to go to the next race.
As a matter of fact, this car was bought from Sherman Armstrong this week. They were out of equipment. This is the Sherman Armstrong car that John Paul and Jan Lammers participated in earlier this year. So it looks like that car is history, and you're right, Derek. They're going to have a problem getting up enough equipment for the next race. By the way, the third voice that's joining myself, Larry Nuber, and Jack Carruth today is Derek Daly, who was a qualifier for this year's Indianapolis 500. Well, it looks like things have secured in terms of the potential of personal injury there in the backstretch. Al Unser Jr. continues to lead this race. More on that crash by Jose Legarza in just a moment. This is the scene live near the Billy Mitchell Bridge. That is Al Unser Jr., who has led this race for about the last 25 laps. We were all commenting that the rain has gotten heavier around this course. We saw him breaking loose a couple of times, particularly as he went around the carousel. He came through turn number 12, around turn number 13, and all of a sudden the car broke loose. It looked like for a moment that something had broken, but Derek, having seen how slippery that racetrack was, up the road a piece from where he came, I think the rain and maybe something else is a factor in that. Derek?
That's right. You see him he just breaks loose just there, corrects it. Now the turbo kicks in just as he gets to the kink. It kicks in just here, and the car just goes straight to the guardrail.
A very hard impact for Al Unser Jr. We have not seen any movement from outside of the cockpit yet. There he is walking to the pickup truck, and that is a welcome sight. Better to go to a truck than an ambulance, particularly after that impact, but it was very, very solid. Now everybody is coming into the pits. That is Dad Al Unser Sr. We're going to rain tires. As we showed you in that replay, the rain is pelting down, particularly on the backstretch and the middle portions of the racetrack from turn 3 all the way around.
Oh, look at this. The
13.
car stalled.
And now he is stalled, Jack.
The car has stalled. They've gone for the starter. They're putting it up underneath the back end of the Pennzoil V7. That's a tough break for Al Unser Sr. Having to refire the engine. A miscue like that from the Penske organization is really out of character.
The problem is, Jack, exiting this pit lane is uphill, and when these engines get so hot, it's very difficult to get enough revs and slip the clutch while you go up. You see Al coming up the hill out of the pit lane here.
And he has such a far pit. He's way down at almost at the peak of the hill, so he still had an uphill run to go.
That's right. So unlike most circuits, this is probably one of the more difficult pit lanes to exit.
Boy, if you're trying to keep score, everything is really scrambled up. Now, according to data speed, right now, Jacques Villeneuve is the leader. He's making his, what has become a mandatory stop for rain tires. He had a 22-second lead on Michael Andretti. Michael, I think, has been in the pits. Ari Luyendyk has pitted within recent laps. He may now be on rain tires. Bobby Rahal spent an inordinate amount of time in the pits. He has changed to rain tires, but he was about...
There it goes again. He had the same problem. Derek tried to build the revs up to come out of the pits, and he almost stalled the car.
Same thing. The man who wins this race is the man who can now put his brain 100% into gear and just guide the car nice and gently around the racetrack.
This could indeed be very interesting. I was wrong about Luyendyk. He had not made a pit stop. Look at the glistening, the glow off those tires. You can tell they look like hot slicks on a real hot summer day, but that's just the rain that's coming down around this race course. Luyendyk makes his pit stop, and we showed him about 40 or 50 seconds behind the leader, Jacques Villeneuve, before this pit stop, so this is not helping his cause any, but it's something you just have to do right now. Gary Lee in the pits.
Nobody likes to see the rain. However, it could be to the advantage of Michael Andretti. On his second pit stop, the fuel cell here went dry. In fact, they had about 8 gallons of fuel in the hose. They could not get through the gravity tube to the car. So he had to make the third pit stop to change to rain tires, and consequently, they got the last 8 gallons into the race car. So now he might go the distance.
Jacques Villeneuve, you saw him spin, or at least the aftermath of the spin at the bottom of the hill, turn number 5. I'm pretty sure he has made his stop. He does have the rain tires on, but he spun off course. Now, at this point, it's too early to tell whether or not he lost the position. What do you think, Jack?
Well, it's questionable whether he lost the position, but more importantly, Derek, and let me address this situation. We've changed to rain tires. We've got the pelting of the rain, but isn't it a lot like what you would feel when you're traveling down a highway? When the rain first hits the pavement, it also mixes with the oil and the rest of the stuff that's been laid down, so it's a whole new learning curve.
That's right, and the problem is you can't always see it.
There you go.
Jack now spinning out just under braking.
You can see
just about keeps everything in control. Luckily, he kept the engine running. He sticks it in gear, and he takes it away immediately. I don't think he lost the lead in that little maneuver.
Well, the question that I now have, we have 12 laps to go. It's almost 50 miles. Alan Jones, he probably has more experience running in the rain than anybody else still left in this race. He is shown in 4th position and a minute down. but he may have a chance. We'll keep our eyes and ears tuned to Alan Jones. Jacques Villeneuve continues to lead. Michael Andretti, a stroke of luck, he runs in second. Arie Luyendyk is third, but Ken Jones catch them. There is the leader, Jacques Villeneuve. He continues to hold the lead despite that spin, a la Danny Sullivan from earlier this year. Michael Andretti is in second position. Somebody has stopped right there at the base of the hill following turn number 5. Too quick to tell exactly who it was. Now, Michael Andretti continues to run second. He is less than 10 seconds behind this man, Jacques Villeneuve. Now, the question becomes, very simply, who's the best in the rain?
They say rain is the great equalizer. If you have a fantastic car in the dry, come the rain, it's all negative. It's all thrown out the window. So we'll just see now who can actually dial his little adjusters in. They've got brake balance bars inside the car. They've got sway bar adjusters front and rear. So the man who can just dial those little adjustments in to the best could be coming out on top
and
here.
Derek, going downhill is even a little more of a burden, isn't it? You've got to be real careful going downhill because you don't know. And look at Michael sliding way out of the groove. You just have no idea how much the momentum is going to carry you out.
That's right, sliding way out of the groove. That's actually the line he wants, because on line is all the rubber and the oil that the cars have dropped all day. Put the water on top of that, it gets too slippy. So Michael took the correct line around the outside. They call it the gray, but in the wet it's got the most grip.
Well, there in second place. You've seen the interval a couple times now between first and second place. Michael high sliding, an anxious moment as he goes for the out back as he goes around turn number 12. You see the yellow flag still flying near the Al Unser incident. They have not removed that car. There comes Enrique Mancella. He continues out on the racetrack. Enrique's being shown at 8th position at this point of the race. Raul Boizo is another top 10 runner. He's on the racetrack and gridded as far as timing and scoring goes, right there with Mancella.
There's your leader. You can take a look as he comes across the start-finish line. Let's see how costly that spin was for your leader. As he goes down into turn number 1, we'll let him go down through there, and we'll see if Andretti has indeed been able to close. He should be about 7 seconds behind. There's going into turn 3. Oh, look who spun in precisely the same place again, Roberto Moreno. He's not having a good day at all in the second half of this race.
No, he isn't. Down into the gravel there, turn number 5 again. That's given us a lot of action the last couple of years. Roberto, as we told you. Now, here's that interval between first and second. There is the leader, the Canadian, Jacques Villeneuve, and here comes second place, Michael Andretti. Now, the interval has shrunk. It's down to about 7 seconds, at least the last time they went by the start-finish line. And with a 4-mile course, almost anything can happen in one lap. It takes you almost 2 minutes to go all the way around, so it may have been 7 seconds on the last lap, but that may not be an indication of just where they are, relatively speaking, on the track now.
I think you can see a totally different rhythm as well, Derek. You watch these cars as they work and win their way around this 14-turn, 4-mile course, and it almost looks like a slow-motion ballet. There isn't that stab and steer anymore. You don't see the turbos kicking in. It's very, very tentative, but also it has a certain ballet-like smoothness to it.
That's right. It's almost a finesse the driver has to now produce to get the best from these situations. But the interesting thing again is Michael is the experienced wet weather driver. You see, again, he uses the outside groove. He almost uses the gray area of the track. And I think that's probably why he's going to make up time on Jacques Villeneuve. Jacques still seems to use the normal dry line. I think Michael is the man who really is really on top of the situation here.
And look who's gone into third place as they go up beneath the Nissan bridge. Alan Jones, the guy that has the most wet experience from his Formula One days, has taken over the third place position. Arie Luyendyk slipped by him. And they're all creeping, as we said before, just kind of sliding through there.
They may look like they're creeping, but you really lose a lot of the sense of speed when you watch on television. We say they're creeping, but I'll venture to guess, and it's hard to estimate because you can't tell just how slick the track is, but I'll bet you they're going 80, 90, 100 miles an hour through there, Derek. You don't
easily,
think so?
Easily, yeah. And you see Jones just at the same line as Michael Andretti, the wide outside line. Another experienced wet weather driver.
120, 130 miles an hour. It looks slow. That's because we are used to seeing 150, 180, and even 200 at the super speedways.
That's right, but they're probably on more of a knife edge now than they were while they ran on slick tires in the dry.
You know, I asked that question about Alan Jones a little earlier. I think we're beginning to see the freight train, the Australian freight train, may be coming.
Well, Alan's a street fighter. He came here about the same weight as he was when he won the Formula One World Championship. I mean, he put on about 20 pounds when he went back to relax in Australia, but he's taken it all off again. He's come here to fight, and I think you see it here.
Let me come to the defense of the leader, Jacques Villeneuve, though. While he may not have a lot of experience in the wet, he does have experience in precipitation, the frozen kind. He's a former champion snowmobiler, and you've got to be a little tentative and have some rhythm when you're wheeling one of those vehicles, too. So Villeneuve may have to search back and translate some of his experiences, but hopefully he'll be able to use it to his advantage.
You can see the track is beginning to look like almost a junkyard. Villeneuve is moving up on Ed Pym. Cars have stopped all over the racetrack, some, I guess, out of fuel, others sliding off in the rain. You can see Michael Andretti has used this opportunity as Villeneuve tiptoes through slower traffic to make the difference between first and second even just a little closer. You know, a real close examination, I guess it was the banking, Derek. For a moment, I thought the left rear wing, or left front wing, rather, was close to the ground, but I think it was just the banking there in the carousel turn. Jacques Villeneuve, the Canadian, out front here at Road America, Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin. It's raining, and it could be a very exciting finish. Jacques Villeneuve continues to thread his way around, up and down and around the hills of central Wisconsin. It's slippery out there. It's raining. The rain is not coming down terribly hard, but it's just enough to completely coat this racetrack. And Villeneuve hears and sees the pounding of Michael Andretti behind him. He runs in first. Raul Boisel has run a good race. He runs right now in 8th position, goes a lap down to Jacques Villeneuve. Gary Lee down in the pit area trying to stay on top of everything that's going on down there. And with the rain, it's a busy place, Gary.
Well, Larry, actually now we have moved to the medical facility here at Elkhart Lake, and just walking out after an exam following his grinding crash, Jose Legarza inside right now being examined by CART Medical Director Steve Alvey is young Al Unser Jr. The report first on Al is he has a laceration on the right foot. He's going to be taken to the hospital for x-rays, a possible fracture of the right heel. Jose Lee, obviously you look to be okay. What's the report?
Well, I'm just fine. I just got checked out. Just wanted to make sure I didn't break anything. So.
Was it the rain that caught you?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was going into turn 11 when the worst of the rain was going on, so I spun the car around and hit the guardrail and got caught it.
It's been a costly month-long period for the machinist union.
It really has. It's very unfortunate that the Schaefer machinist car last weekend crashed and this weekend again, so it's going to be a lot of work done to it.
Well, as you can see, Jose Lee is okay. We'll check back about Al Jr.
Well, Jose Lee having a very good month, at least in terms of speed. He was very fast at the Michigan International Speedway High Banks. I think it's something that nobody really expected, but he was definitely a threat to win there last week before he had a problem there. And now this week with the rain causing problems there in the backstretch. Apparently the backstretch is the trickiest place. The end of the racetrack there coming out of Canada Corner going around turns 11, 12, and 13 is the tough place to be.
That's right. It's also the highest speed corners. See, the car is really scratching for grip. And if you get in trouble at all, you see exactly what happened to Jose Lee. That's what happened to you.
I think the biggest question right now is the mental battle that's going on within your leader, Jacques Villeneuve. Jacques Villeneuve is trying to figure out where he can go the fastest and the quickest. But we've got an update from the medical center here at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and right on top of that is Gary Lee.
CART Medical Director Steve Alvey, what's the latest on Al Jr.?
Al Jr. is fine, but he has a minor ankle injury on the right side. He's got a laceration, and we need to send him in for x-rays to see if it's fractured or not. But he's awake and in good spirits and doesn't have any other injury.
Good news from the medical facility.
KK Mansella leads right now Jacques Villeneuve as Jacques gets ready to put one more lap on this driver, making his debut, checking the mirrors, trying to find out exactly where Jacques wants to go, but it doesn't happen as quickly as the drivers normally come to expect it. In this rain, you have to be careful. You have to also anticipate. You have to look ahead. If you see a shiny spot on the racetrack coming up, you got to assume that's just not heat waves from the sun. You got to assume it's wet, and it may not be the same this lap as it was the last lap.
That's right. And in this situation, you just can't take any chances that the driver ahead of you, you can't anticipate that he knows you're there. You have to presume that he doesn't know. So any move you make has to be decisive and 100%. You have to take the line from the other driver.
And remember that Jacques Villeneuve has never really been in this position before, and we're taking a look at a situation that he's got to fight within himself. But another fight within himself is the guy that's running in 6th position. And remember, we alluded to this in the opening of the telecast. That's Al Unser Sr. hopefully and conceivably he could take over the points lead if he finishes 6th or better, all depending on where Emerson Fittipaldi manages to finish today. Fitto has to finish 4th or better to take over from Mario Andretti, but right now it looks like Al Unser Sr. would come very close to taking over the points lead, taking away from an absent Mario Andretti. For the first time in over 12 months, by the way, that Andretti would not be on the points on the point of the point spread.
Well, Roberto Moreno, he just went by. He's back out there again. Roberto Moreno was spun off course twice, and here comes Emerson Fittipaldi talking about that point battle. Emerson has not had a fast day, but he's had a consistent day. Right now he's showing in 7th position. You can see the car is kind of a hybrid. Yes, it has the colors that he normally wears, but it has STP colors on the wings. They've actually taken the best, you might say, of 2 worlds of both cars and put them together to try and come up with some competitive combination here this weekend at Elkhart Lake. They have been thrashing around all weekend long, Derek, and they just have never been able to come upon that one combo that makes them fast.
When they finished running on Saturday, they just were not happy with both cars, his and Giacomelli, so they completely changed the 2 setups, went into the race.
Listen to it now. A broken header, we are told, and it doesn't really sound like an IndyCar Cosworth.
That's right. So the new handling setup is obviously not to Emerson's liking, and now he has to cope with this engine problem also. So a bit of a struggle for the Michigan 500 winner.
5 laps to go. We'll see if we can tune in a little bit more for you. Again, the sound this car is omitting, because there you go. It just don't sound like they're supposed to, that's for sure. But gallant Emerson Fittipaldi, he knows that if he performs well here today, he could pay big dividends down the road, because Mario Andretti, one of his biggest adversaries in terms of the points race, is on the shelf. Al Unser Sr. is not winning this race, so Emo really wants to finish it no matter what the circumstances are.
You listen to that thing, and it sounds a lot like half a stock block.
Well, you might say. Emerson Fittipaldi, he's had 7 starts this year. He's been running at the finish 6 times. He has led 55 times and 55 laps, and there is the leader, Jacques Villeneuve. He has been able to hold back the normal tendency of a race driver, and that is to put your foot down and charge as hard as you can. He's leading this race in the rain. Larry Newber, Jack Arute, along with Derek Daly up here in the broadcast booth, and Gary Lee down in the pits for the IndyCar PPG Elkhart Lake race at Road America. We're going 200 miles today, 50 laps around this 4-mile course for, obviously, Indy cars. And there is the leader, Canadian Jacques Villeneuve. You can see him testing the racetrack. And Derek, I just heard you talking with Jack a couple of seconds ago. It looks like the rain perhaps has stopped. Maybe this track is drying out. What do you think the chances are with, 4 laps to go of everybody stopping, putting on slicks? Really not worth the risk, is it?
I don't think so at this stage. With 4 laps to go, they can just about keep those rain tires cool. The unfortunate thing is there's actually not enough water on the track to even cool those tires. So luckily, everybody is on these wet weather tires. I think they'll stay on them.
Well, Bobby Rahal continued out on the course. Remember, he had that problem a little earlier in this race with sparks flying spectacularly from underneath. Now, our spotters are telling us that his fuel light is coming on, but I don't know that that really makes all that sense. He's had an opportunity to stop for rain tires. They probably put in some fuel then. We're still 4 laps or almost 20 miles away from the finish, but our spotters tell us the fuel light is coming on and burning brightly.
I do believe Bobby Rahal has led this race for the last 2 years and run out of fuel. So this may be another replay.
Well stated.
Well, he took 2 pit stops early in the going there, actually at the midway point, very close. He pitted on the 33rd lap, and then he came back in on the 35th lap. So it's kind of unusual that you'd see the light at this point.
Boy, if he had the concession on fireworks for this race, he'd be making a mint. That car is still bottoming out and throwing out lots of sparks, but obviously that skid plate is doing its job and not causing any damage to the running gear of the Jim Truman race car. Bobby Rahal doing a pretty good job considering all the time that he has spent in the pit area today. I'm sure that they came in and they thought that maybe this was their race. Rahal, we told you earlier, he's had all kinds of little nagging problems. Steve Horn and crew have done everything they possibly could and then some to try and figure out just what's happening. But you know, Derek, I get a feeling about it. I think it's just been racing luck. This is a very solid team. They impressed me very much when they first came to the Indy circuit. They're a bunch of bright people, and I think it's just one of those things that's been happening to them this year.
Dare I say, it happened last year. They had everything. They had all the qualities they need to win races, but it didn't gel. It just didn't flow. And Rahal is one of the fastest and most feared of competitors at every race. but it takes him too long to get to the finish line.
But you guys talk about somebody that's had a litany of bad luck. How about our leader, Jacques Villeneuve? You know, last year he sat on the pole at Phoenix. He led at Caesars for a while, came to Indianapolis, and you know the story there. He couldn't quite get up to speed. They brought in a tutorial driver who ended up driving, Johnny Parsons Jr. And then remember later on down the road, I believe it was possibly in Portland, they had that terrible set of weather up there where their shop was. A tornado came down and almost wiped out their shop, missed it only by less than a mile. So, I mean, it's been a tough road to hoe for our leader. And for more on that, let's go to Gary Lee.
We just talked with Larry Curry, who is the team manager for the Canadian Tire entry, and he said it's really a roll of the dice. We're racing right now on rain tires. If we come in and change to the slicks, we know we will lose the lead. So let's stay out there as long as we can, even though the rain apparently is decimating now. And we'll stay out there and see if we can't pull off the win. They have the boost cranked up. Fuel economy is fine. We also checked with the Craco team. They say because they made that third pit stop to change to the rain tires, they were able to get the additional fuel into the tank. Michael can now go the distance, and he'll stay out there on the rain tires.
Gary, one of the things that Larry Curry has always been very good about is addressing a situation honesty. Any concern down there about the maturity as far as this driver is concerned to hold and bridle himself to be able to take this win?
Well, if there is some concern, it is not showing on his face or the faces of the crew, and it really doesn't matter if he has that concern because it's all in the hands of the guy in the cockpit, and that's Jacques Villeneuve. And as you'll recall, Jacques was very, very fast in the rain during practice at Cleveland. He says he likes to run in the rain, so this could have all worked to his advantage this afternoon.
We saw a shot of Kiki Mansella feeling his old. He has been trailing Jacques Villeneuve the last couple laps. He let Jacques get by, I think, but now he's trying to see if I can be just as fast as Jacques in the rain, and I venture to guess he's doing a pretty good job. He's staying right with him, Derek.
He's slipping and sliding that Lola running quite spectacularly behind him. I would think better make sure he backs off just enough to make sure he gets to the finish line.
You know, when you watch those drivers go down through the corners, you can tell that Jacques knows Mancella's back there because he takes a quick look at the mirror just to see if Mansella was maybe going to dart to the inside and cut the line in that corner.
You know, I'm wondering now if Jacques Villeneuve might just move over and let Kiki by. There's Roberto Moreno, also Randy Lanier going by. You look at Mansella, or not Mansella. Yeah, Mansella moves up and almost runs into the back of Jacques Villeneuve. And boy, I'll tell you, that would catch your attention if you were leading a race.
But this is what we talk about when we say driver maturity. Does Jacques Villeneuve have the maturity to know that that's not a contest for position and to maybe give a little wider berth and let this guy get by him and maybe hold on for the victory?
Exactly. I think Jacques would be well advised to let Mansella go and clear out of his way because he looks as if he's looking for somebody to collect at the moment.
What you want to say is an accident waiting to happen.
Jacques Villeneuve, who leads this race, he was the first Canadian to win the Canadian-American or Can-Am Championship in its 17-year history back in 1983. He, of course, has had a couple of stints in Formula One racing, but it never all seemed to come together for him until he landed this Canadian Tire situation. They said, hey, we want to go IndyCar racing. He's had a couple of misfortunes at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but most of the other tracks in the circuit came over. Jack mentioned earlier he was the fastest qualifier with a brand-new track record on the 1-mile oval at Phoenix at the end of last year. It's beginning to come together for him, and a win today would really be a shot in the arm for this Canadian Tire team.
Well, we sound a little prophetic in our tease, Larry, because we talked about Villeneuve maybe being one of the bright young talents that could get the job done here. But again, remember the pictures that we showed over that where he was challenging for the lead at Cleveland and managed to spin and lost all hope of victory? Let's hope that with the white flag being displayed that it doesn't occur again today.
Well, almost as suddenly as the rain appeared, the white flag is out. Update on Michael Andretti. 9 seconds behind on the last lap. It looks like it is beyond his grip. Car number 1, Alan Jones, is in 3rd position. There you see our leader, Jacques Villeneuve, and Mansella is really pressuring Jacques. And Derek, I would agree with you. I would find a wide place on this racetrack, move over and wave KK by and say, go on, buddy.
That's right. I think Mansella is desperate to get that lap back. He doesn't want to finish a lap down. Jacques will be well advised. That's it. Move over, Jacques. Let him go. Let him through.
A very interesting moment and something that we are
Look at this. Mansella's off. What did we say? We knew it was going to happen. It had to happen.
Oh, and KK finds the wet grass. Whoa, and he's kicked dirt right out onto the racetrack and comes to a stop sideways, and that is not a very safe position. course, with this weather and rain tires, the cars are going. There goes second place Michael Andretti by, and KK giving us some exciting moments here on the final lap.
No real excuse for that either, because it wasn't a battle for position. He had it locked up. He was running strong in 8th spot, and it just shows that a driver that's new to these Indy cars has problems, and you have to contain yourself.
That's right. At the moment, he needs experience and plenty of room.
I am very impressed with Jacques Villeneuve because this is something that really we haven't seen that much from Jacques. Driving with that helmet, that green and white Canadian helmet, more than that right foot. He is really running an intelligent race. He has assessed the situation. He built up the margin between himself and Michael Andretti, and he has definitely been minding his P's and Q's the last few laps.
It's good to see the Canadian tire team come on so strongly at this particular stage, because the car series in a couple of races' time goes to Canada, to Saint Air, where they're going to run a second car for Jim Crawford. And I think up there they're going to look to be as strong as they are here. So it's very good to see Canadian tire be so strong at this stage.
Well, Al Unser Jr. in that yellow, or Al Unser Sr. rather, in that yellow car is running in 5th position. The checkered flag is coming up. Here comes Jacques Villeneuve uphill underneath the Beatrice Bridge, looking for checkered flag, crossing the start-finish line. The dual unfurled checkered comes out, and Jacques Villeneuve has won for the very first time in his career a CART PPG Indy car race. A big moment for the likable Canadian. He's a guy who's cutting the mold. The fist of power comes out of the cockpit. He is cutting the mold of Mario Andretti, and it's fitting, I guess, that Jacques would win here today. There's Roberto Moreno right behind the leader. Roberto had all those problems in the early stages of the race. He certainly showed us the speed to win, but it just wasn't
here's a battle for position and a battle for the points lead as well, because they're mired back in 7th and 8th, well, actually in 6th and 7th position. Remember, we told you Al Unser Sr. had to finish 6th or better to take the lead from Mario Andretti. Right now, he's being posted in 7th spot. Emerson Fittipaldi has moved up into the 6th position, but Fittipaldi had to finish 4th or better to take the lead. So could we have Andretti holding on to the points lead when we go to Pocono?
Well, in 5th spot right now, just outside of camera range, there he is Ari Luyendyk. He has run a really solid race in 5th. Now we may have a battle for 5th spot. Emerson Fittipaldi with that sick engine is working, Derek.
He's going to get past Ari, because Ari seems to have lost a lot of grip. I think he's probably used up these wet tires in the dry situation too hard. He's used the tires too hard. He's slow around the corners. I think Emerson is going to look to make a strong charge here. I think he's going to get by.
This will be 5th position. Emerson Fittipaldi taking a look high, taking a look low. He goes now toward turn number 12. Just 2 turns and a straightaway to go. Fittipaldi goes to the right side of Luyendyk, going into Canada corner, and Fittipaldi has it. Emerson Fittipaldi takes over the number 5 position. And Ari Luyendyk has to make way for 6th. There is 7th, Al Unser Sr., and Al Unser Sr. may also catch Luyendyk before this one is over. As Derek said, it appears as though all the grip is gone from Luyendyk's tires. He's just got the straightaway. He slides around turn number 4. Now it's foot to the floor. It's Katie by the door. He's got to go for the finish and beat Al Unser Sr.
He's just about going to make it. Here he goes. That's it. Takes the flag. He's made it.
5th place for Fittipaldi, 6th place for Luyendyk, and 7th for Al Unser Sr. But the story of this race was rain, a spectacular crash, a couple of them, as a matter of fact, by Jose Lee Garza and Al Unser Sr. But for a young Canadian, the first time ever, he won an IndyCar race back after this. Jacques Villeneuve has won for the very first time in his Indianapolis car career, and this could be the start of great things to come. A lot of people look at this young Charger, particularly on the road courses, and say, well, he has the potential to be a big winner. He seemed to really use, and you can see the excitement coming from Jacques. He really used his head today. Racing in rain, he held off Michael Andretti. Ellen Jones, by the way, was in 3rd place, but Gary Lee is down in victory circle.
I don't think I have ever seen a happier winner. Our congratulations. And the toughest time of the day was actually maneuvering the car into victory lane.
Well, I guess because the car worked well all the time on the racetrack. The worst time was when it started to get wet with the dry tire, and then after that, the car was just marvelous all day.
We had alluded earlier to your practice times at Cleveland in the rain when you were very, very fast, so obviously you work well in the rain.
Well, the car worked well, so it's easy to go along with it.
We saw a number of altercations throughout the competition. Did at any time you get close to any of those?
Well, yes, I did touch somebody in the back. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Brabham. I'm not sure. I was just close on the braking. I did slide, and I touched my front wing on his rear tire. I'm not sure if it's Brabham, another car. And that was the only close call I had.
Was it a case of slowing down for the rain and perhaps conserving the fuel just a bit?
Well, the plan was to save fuel the whole race. I dropped the boost down to 45 the whole race, and I left it there. We had enough fuel for the whole race, and the car worked marvelous that way. I was slow starting the race, but then just kept the pace with the guys, and they kept dropping off.
You have been so competitive on the road courses in the past, you have to think now to yourself, what took us so long?
Took 2 years.
Congratulations. Look at that grid.
Thank you.
The Winner's Circle interview has been brought to you by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. We'll be back with a wrap-up and more from the Road America 4-mile road course at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, after these words. I'd like to thank Derek Daly for joining us in the broadcast booth today. His insight provided some truly interesting and unusual kind of looks at IndyCar racing, particularly as the rain began to come down. It was something that we haven't seen all that often in the years of IndyCar racing, but it truly provided for a very interesting race. Jacques Villeneuve wins for the first time in his IndyCar career, and the question becomes, how many more are coming? 50 laps, of course, the length of this race, time 1 hour and 45 minutes, the average speed dropping down to 114 miles per hour. There were 4 different official leaders, 3 lead changes, Danny Sullivan, Roberto Moreno, Al Unser Jr., and Jacques Villeneuve being the 4 leaders of this race. We'll be back to wrap up the activity at Elkhart Lake today after these few words where Jacques Villeneuve continues to celebrate in victory lane. It's a happy day for the Canadian Tire people here at Road America. The top 10 in today's Provimi VL 200, Jacques Villeneuve, of course, the winner. And by the way, there is a tie on top for the point standings. Mario Andretti, yes, and Emerson Fittipaldi are tied with 86 points apiece. Second in the race went to Michael Andretti, who was nursing home a car that appeared to be running sourly in the first half of the race. Alan Jones gives a great drive at the end, coming on to third. Bobby Rahal is fourth. Emerson Fittipaldi is fifth. The Provimi VL 200 has been brought to you by the STP Corporation. On the world's racetracks, on the world's roads, depend on STP, your car care company. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Pennzoil Motor Oil, quality protection, ask for it. Congratulations once again to